Justina. Hello, everybody. So,
Hello.
so Richard, we had quite a few people signed up, but I think there's only 3 of you on at the moment. I think just that whole people are busy. It's half term. The sunny weather has landed. Things have drawn people away. So other people may join us. If they don't, there's a possibility that we might be done sooner than the hour and a half, because there were a few sort of interactive. Oh, somebody else joining us now. There were a few sort of interactive pieces, which obviously with bigger groups take a little bit longer, but we'll see how we get on. Hi, Claire. So as Justina said, I'm Rebecca Collins. As we're not a very big group, if people want to turn the cameras on, they're very welcome to do so. If you don't want to turn your camera on, then likewise you are very welcome not to do so. It doesn't matter to me at all. So I'm Rebecca Collins. So the reason that I'm sort of sitting here talking to you today is twofold, or possibly even threefold. So I own and run a training and consultancy business, so specialising in things like coaching and mentoring, but a lot around organisational culture and organisational redesign. I work quite closely with the University of Salford, have done for a number of years, and I'm an industry fellow at the business school. So do some work with the business school and do some work with the professional development arm of the university. But in a previous incarnation, I was for a number of years an employee of West Yorkshire Police. And I was civilian, I wasn't a police officer, I was civilian staff, and I did a number of jobs in the police service. But the last sort of 8 years of my career was all working around the equality and diversity agenda. And I ended up heading up the equality and diversity team within the organisation. So that's sort of my background around equality and diversity. So I don't know, as there aren't lots of us, I didn't know if people perhaps wanted to we could just do a quick introduction, because there's only 5 of you plus myself at the moment. So maybe if you wanted to just say, a little bit about who you are, just for a moment or two, and perhaps what you're hoping to get out of the session. So, yeah, that would be great. No pressure, but Richard, you've been on and been chatting.
Yeah,
You're doing an MA at the moment.
Yeah, that's correct. I can kick it off if you like. I'm doing an MA in contemporary art. I have ideas to build a business going forward. I'd like to sell my paintings, what I create, but that's not always the easiest thing. But it's not always the easiest thing to be discovered, or in the art world generally. There's that many artists competing for the same space now. So I'd like to sort of put a shop onto my website and then be more active in that way. But I'd also like to start working with other people in the form of like art workshops, mostly through painting, and then also hiring possibly other artists who can introduce their own mediums to work with as well.
Lovely.
So I need a space, but I'm quite happy to work online with people and in the real world as well. So I'm looking for trying to get a space going forward in my local town, which is Wigan. So that's my ideas. I'd like to work with children, adults with learning disabilities, people with mental health problems, and ex-offenders potentially. Not all at once, obviously, but yeah, they're the kind of groups that I'd like to target. And anyone who's really interested in art and wants a bit of relaxation and going forward, learning about art and the power of art, basically. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That's wonderful. Okay. Anybody else happy to just share who they are and what they're hoping to get from the session?
Hi, my name's Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Hiya. I'm just finishing my first year of my digital business degree.
Right.
I work for the Co-op Academy Trust at the moment, and they're into building diverse teams. So
Yeah.
I thought it would be also useful to come to this, and I've been recommended to read Rebel Ideas
Okay.
by Matthew Side, and I thought, well, this links in very well with that.
Okay, lovely. Wonderful. Thank you. That's great. Okay. Anybody else happy to share who they are and why they're here, what they're hoping for? Nick, hi.
Hello there, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. Nick and I know each other from a previous incarnation, so yeah.
Yeah, well, for me, basically, I thought, well, number one, I'll come and support Rebecca. Sounds like a good idea. Number two, I know that if you're going to be talking about something, you're going to be talking a lot of sense. I'm going to learn good stuff. So, and building diversity.
I'll pay you later.
No, but it's true. The check hasn't come through yet, though. That's the only thing I'll say. So just get that sorted out. But no, you know, building diverse teams. I think there's a group of us from your course, Rebecca, are actually setting up a company, as you know.
Yeah.
And I've actually got my first pitch proper on Monday.
Wonderful.
And one of the things what we're talking about is compassionate leadership and a culture of kindness is the thing we really want to try and talk about. And a big part of that, of course, is diverse teams. So really celebrating diversity and recognizing that if you're going to be effective and have effective collaboration, then you need truly effective challenge, because you've got that compassion, but you've got all those different points of view in the room and those different experiences and ideas. So yeah,
thank you, that's great, Nick. Cheers, thanks very much. The check is on its way. Okay. I've got I've got Marat and I've got Mayada, and if I'm saying anybody's name incorrectly, please do correct me, make sure I get it right. Adesola, is that correct? Anybody want to just share anything? No pressure if you don't want to. Sean, anyone? No? Okay, no worries, it's absolutely fine. Okay, I'm going to just get into it then. I'm just going to get into it. So it's all very casual, you know. I don't go anywhere without a large thermos full of tea. So, you know, please make sure that you're happy and you're comfortable and all of those things. And let's get into it. And it might be a little bit different. I'm going to talk for a bit. Then we're going to have a few a breakout group and get you thinking and talking about things. So hopefully it will be interesting and engaging. And if at any point anybody is bored, then please do let me know and I will endeavour to do something about it. Right, so my mum and dad could dance. So my dad's not with us anymore, but my goodness, could they dance. They were absolutely wonderful. My dad was semi-professional, maybe not strictly, you know, they were children of the 50s and the 60s. And but they could jive, you know, they could absolutely jive. And whenever we went to family parties or, you know, weddings, christenings, whatever it might happen to be, my mum and dad were centre stage and absolutely awesome. And you know, I was completely in awe of my parents' ability to dance. And then as I grew up, those of you who are in and around Manchester, does anybody, any prizes for guessing where that is? Does anybody know?
Hacienda.
It is the Hacienda. Yep. My understanding is that if all of the people who claim went to the Hacienda actually went to the Hacienda, it'd have had to have been open for something like 87 years. But this is the Hacienda. And I went a couple of times, but my sister pretty much lived there. And my goodness, the girl could dance. She was incredible. It was a different type of dancing to my mum and dad, but she could dance. And there were a couple of DJs that used to go around doing the clubbing, and my sister was one of their sort of professional stage dancers. So why am I telling you this? Well, actually, that's me. Two left feet, absolutely 100% hopeless. Now, I love to dance. I adore it. But my goodness, it is not elegant. It is not stylish. And one of my closest friends at school, who is probably the most elegant man I've ever met in my life, tried for years and years and years to get me to dance. And I can kind of do it on my own, but I kind of can't do it with anybody else. It's always a mess. And quite often when I was young, in my teens and into my 20s, I pretty much felt like that. I felt like an idiot. Everybody else could dance, my parents could dance, my sister could dance, and my dancing was not good. And generally, you know, a little bit clumsy and a little bit, yeah, just not quite the same. And it used to bother me. And it bothered me for a really long time. And I would sit things out and I wouldn't participate. And I didn't really know why. But over time, and particularly with the work that I did with young people with learning disabilities, I ran the Leeds Riding for the Disabled Association stables for quite a long time, and then going into my professional world and working with diverse groups, and I worked for the police service. A number of things started to fall into place for me, and what I realised was that actually this is what I have. I have dyspraxia. I have quite mild dyspraxia, but I have dyspraxia, and it's a difficult thing to diagnose in adults. But you know, working with a couple of people, working with some psychologists, as near as can be, I have a diagnosis. And if you look at, you know, some of the things that it says about the condition, you know, that the top left, that physical piece about fine motor skills, balance and coordination, and the spatial awareness and judging distances, you know, and knowing where you are in relation to other people and objects. This probably accounts for why I'm such a lamentable dancer, and why, if I am dancing with another person, best they wear steel-toe-capped boots, because to be honest with you, they're going to get trodden on. But there are lots of other things. You know, once I started to understand a little bit more about the condition and what it was, it actually started to make real sense to me about how I was, how I behaved, how I processed the world. And, you know, the speech and language one makes me chuckle. So there are lots of words that I can't say. I can't say to, it's made out of diamonds and you wear it on your head. The Queen has them. Tiara. I can't say it. Fella, can't say it. And there are lots of other words, and I'm forever talking about thingamajigs and whatsits, because I really struggle with words. So there were lots of things in here that made me think, right, that is me, and it is me. It is me, and that was helpful. But actually, it was less about the fact, it's less about all the challenges that this brings, and there are some, but it's more about the benefits, because I have this, but what it does is it allows me to do certain things in ways that other people can't. So I'm a consultant and a coach. That's my day job. You know, I run a small business, but the majority of my day job is operating as a consultant in the world of organisational design and development. So helping organisations to restructure, helping organisations around things like culture change, helping organisations to strategically change direction, and also coaching, you know, lots of different people, but coaching usually people who own and run businesses. And I work with everyone from people who are in a startup position, you know, where it might just be them or them and a couple of other people, right the way through to the chief execs of huge, you know, international, multinational organisations. So I work at lots of different levels, and I work in the public sector, and I work in the private sector, and I work with charities as well. So, you know, I've trained community coaches in some of the more troubled areas of inner city areas of Leeds. You know, kids who were at risk of drugs and gangs, building cohorts of community coaches. So I work with lots of people, diverse groups of people, and actually the condition that I have, whilst it means that I am a lamentable dancer, whilst it means that I can't say certain words, whilst it means that sometimes I stress about things that other people wouldn't stress about, that sometimes, you know, I'm not always great in large social groups, but it does mean that my brain is wired in such a way that I can see connections that other people can't necessarily see quickly, and I can challenge organisations around connections that I've seen. So the whole cause and effect thing, I can often pick up on subtleties and nuance that other people may not be able to do as quickly. And I'm super creative. So actually, it's really, really helpful in terms of my professional life, although it caused a lot of pain and upset, you know, when I was younger. But, you know, these things weren't known about, they weren't as diagnosed, they weren't as recognised as they are now. So actually, whilst it has caused me some challenges, it has also served me well. So I'm just going to go off on a little Becky tangent and tell you a story about when I was at school. So I'm probably older than all of you, although Claire, recognising the hacienda. But when I was at school, you didn't do GCSEs. You did O-levels if you were super clever, and you did CSEs if you weren't quite as clever. And I was in the top set at maths. I was doing O-levels, and I was predicted to get an A. So, you know, I was good at maths, but I didn't work things out in the same way that other people did. I worked things out in a much, much more convoluted way. But it was fast and it was accurate. And the year before I did my O-level, my lovely, wonderful, supportive maths teacher, Mr. Martin, left. And I went from being somebody who was in the top set of maths, potentially doing a maths A-level, potentially thinking about doing a maths degree, to being somebody who couldn't do maths, because the new maths teacher forced me to work things out in the way that the textbook said that I had to, and I couldn't do it. So I went from top set, predicted an A, to I dropped 2 sets and ended up with a CSE, and the CSE grade 1 was the equivalent of a grade C at O-level. And I fell out of love with maths, and I never went back to it. So this was the impact of not letting me process things in the way that I would choose to. So again, you know, we're talking about diversity here, and I will get to all sorts of different forms of diversity as we go forward. So I'm neurodivergent, apparently. I don't think that word even existed when, or if it did, it wasn't known. We hear a lot of people talking about neurodiversity nowadays. You know, and neurodiversity, or being neurodivergent, is about people who have less typical ways of processing the world. But it tends to sit to the diagnosable or the recognised conditions such as autism or ADHD, dyspraxia in my case. But you know, if you look at that slide, this is an estimated 30 to 40% of the world population. So a lot of us are neurodivergent. But this session isn't about neurodiversity per se, and I don't profess to be an expert in the world of neurodiversity, but I am an expert in the world of people and how people interact with organisations. So let me just share. Because the problem that we have in organisations is, and I saw this so often in the police service, the problem we have in organisations is that we talk about wanting to build diverse organisations. We talk about valuing diversity. You know, for most organisations that I have worked for and worked with, they genuinely mean this. They genuinely want to bring in people who are different and genuinely want to build a diverse team. The challenge is that often the way that we induct people into organisations, the way that we structure and build our organisation, means that we might take lots of people in who might physically look different, or might have a disability, or might be, you know, might be gay or lesbian, they might be from a different ethnic minority background, they might be from a different racial background, but we put them through the sausage machine so that actually what they do is they end up thinking and behaving in a way that is acceptable to the organisation. And that is often in smaller organisations, in startups, in entrepreneur-driven organisations, it's often like the person who founded the organisation. But it isn't just in small organisations, this is in big organisations. So when I worked in the police service, we worked tirelessly to have a police service that represented the communities that we served. So we worked long and hard to have more women, more people from black and minority ethnic backgrounds, more people from LGBTQ backgrounds, you know, all of that stuff, all of that great work that me and my team did. And then when we got somebody through the recruitment process, we sent them off for 6 months onto a residential programme where we taught them to think like a white man. And that is the truth of the matter. That is what we did. So to me, you know, I'm a white woman, you know, I am a white heterosexual woman from you know, a sort of a middle class background. I went to a not great school, but I got a reasonably good education. I had a lot of advantages that other people didn't have, but not as many advantages as some other people did have. I can only talk to the world from my perspective. So I can't tell you, I can't talk to you about what white privilege looks like for somebody who is black. I can't talk to you about what Islamophobia feels like from somebody who is Muslim. I can't do that. All I can do, and this is my take on how we build diverse teams, all I can do is support people in organisations, leaders and managers in organisations, to see the person in front of them. So So what I think is really important, yes, I've talked about neurodiversity, and that is the diversity of cognitive processing that is linked to an identified and recognised condition. But actually, we all have neurodiversity because we are all processing the world from our experiences and our backgrounds. And some of that is taught by our parents and our communities, and some of that is learnt by our experiences. But for me, this is the stuff that is really, really exciting and that needs celebrating. Because whilst people from a black and minority ethnic background might have some shared experiences of how they may have been treated or dealt with in an organisation, or their take on how that is different to somebody from a white background, not one of those people's experience will be identical, because they in and of themselves process the world in a different way. So actually, it's about holistically looking at the whole person and what, you know, what do they bring to the party, and trying to understand that. So actually the diversity of their experience, and not popping people into a category. Because remember, as organisations, we tend to do a lot of this. So it's about not wanting people to conform, not wanting people to behave in the way that is driven by the organisation. It's about really trying to understand someone, for me, at a human level. And recognising and celebrating that actually that brings all manner of wonder to a business, to an organisation. And, you know, we're thinking about being entrepreneurs here, we're thinking about startup businesses, we're thinking about the organisations that we work in. And many of us, the cursor's just come a moment, bear with me. You know, many of us understand and have seen and recognise and would put our hands up and say that actually, you know, we want to be challenged, we need to be challenged. We recognise that challenge brings with it change and development and growth and all of those things. But to what extent do we actually believe what we say? So here's the thing, and I am going to give you guys the opportunity to talk in a few minutes. It isn't just going to be me sort of banging on. But because here's the thing. I own a business. I founded the business. 10 years ago, I founded this business. This business has cost me blood and sweat and tears and a marriage, and it is absolutely my baby. And I can look at my business, and I can look at myself in my business, and I can recognise where I have made decisions and continue to make decisions that are less than optimal. But when somebody challenges me about my business, it's very easy to become very defensive, because this is something that I have dedicated my life to. You know, well, the last 10 years of my life too. And so actually, I absolutely 100% subscribe to this. But when it comes to it, it's been a very long lesson to be learned, to not take a massively emotional response to it. So if somebody were saying to me, there is something about the culture that you have developed in your organisation, the way that your organisation does business, that may mean that your business is not as open to or as appealing to people who are, you know, can bring this to the party, who have, you know, who come from this background or have got that experience or might be able to bring this, that's something that is going to, you know, probably be very true, but it's something that it's going to be harder for me to get over because this is my baby. And so we need to be very careful. And that, I think, applies massively for people who are small business owners and leaders, but I think it also multiplies up, you know, to when you're working with anybody. You know, I work a lot with people who are chief execs and, you know, board directors of sometimes very big organisations, and it's very hard for them to hear challenge to their organisation because ultimately they understand that it's challenge to themselves and to their decision making or the way that they have created the culture of the organisation. And this for me is one of the big challenges that we face when we're looking at trying to build really diverse teams, because we're talking about bringing people in with different experiences, with different points of view, with different life skills and backgrounds and takes on the world. And that in and of itself creates a melting pot of different viewpoints and challenge. And actually, how comfortable are many of us with challenge? And that's a question that I pose to you, and I'm going to get you to think about that in a few moments. Okay, so let's just talk. You know, I've talked about neurodiversity, and I've talked about the diversity of experience, and obviously we know that there are certain groups who are protected in law, so where somebody could bring an actual, you know, court case, a legal challenge about discriminatory behaviour or discriminatory practices. But actually, you know, and we may think of ourselves as being fabulously wonderful and tolerant people, but I would suggest that we all have an ism, and it may not be an overt ism. It may not be an ism against somebody who actually is covered by one of the protected characteristics in sort of the equality legislation. But we all have an ism. So, and let me give you some examples just quickly. I have worked with many business owners, small business owners, who will say to me, I know this isn't politically correct, but actually, I would think twice about recruiting a woman of childbearing age because my small business, even though I know it's wrong, and even though I've technically not got anything against women and would be happy to have women in the organisation, but as a risk to my organisation, if that person were to fall pregnant, to go off on maternity leave, and you know, I can't afford to both pay them their maternity leave and have somebody covering. Now, I've heard people say that, and I've heard people say it a lot. And, you know, are they actually being discriminatory from a I don't like women perspective? No, they're not. But they are being discriminatory from the perspective of trying to protect their business. So they're looking at this as a risk factor, but what are they potentially losing along the way? And you may have isms that fall completely outside any of the protected characteristics. My partner's brother, I have not met the man, not for any particular reason, but just haven't met him as yet. But I know for a fact, because of certain things that he has said, that he equates tattoos with being an idiot. So only people with low IQ have a tattoo. And when I do meet him, my intention, my outfit will be a mortarboard and a backless dress, because I have a very large tattoo on my back. And so, but that is his ism. So he automatically discounts people with tattoos, as do many others. So there's lots of isms that we might have that aren't necessarily about the protected characteristics, but they are our worldview of certain groups or certain people. So I'm just going to, just for a moment, and you do not need to share anything at all here, but I just want you to take a moment to think about whether there is anything that you would not choose to employ or recruit or work with. And I don't want you to share it. I just want you to take a moment and have a think for self. So as I say, I'm not going to ask anybody to share anything at all. But I think asking the question is a really useful one. And those isms will be based upon what we were taught, or what we have learnt, or what we've experienced. So I have a couple of isms. I have a couple of isms, and those isms are based on experiences that I've had, and you know, I have seen certain behaviours from certain groups, and I've made a judgment, and that is not correct, not appropriate, and I challenge myself regularly about that ism. And I think that this is all that we can do. So when you talk about building diverse teams, I think for us as leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, you know, people working within organisations, it's about having some sort of awareness. What is it that we don't like personally? What is it that maybe we don't like organisationally, even if we haven't overtly stated it? Because if you are not attracting certain people to your organisation, why is that? What is that all about? And okay, if you've got a very small business, you've got potentially more limited opportunities. But what if you're not attracting customers or clients from different groups? Why is that then? And is there anything that can be done about it? So I think having these difficult conversations with ourselves, bringing these ideas to the front of our awareness and into our consciousness, allows us to make some informed decisions as business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs, managers, wherever we might happen to sit. And I'm going to just, I've just got a couple more slides before I'm going to ask you to just break out, and you're going to have less of me talking and more of you talking, which I'm sure will be absolutely a blessing to you all. Okay, so one of the incredible things that bringing diverse groups together does is it allows us as organisations to identify, manage and mitigate risk in different ways. So somebody that I worked with last year, well, just before the pandemic hit, so I was working down in London with a group of people, and one of the people from that group is a very, very senior woman working in the city of London in corporate finance. And she has worked extensively on board diversity. So not just bringing more women into the board, but bringing more people from minority ethnic backgrounds or LGBT backgrounds or different religions, all the rest of it. So really has worked long and hard on building board diversity. So she works in the world of corporate finance. And what she has found, what they have systematically found, is that when you have a diverse board, you actually are a much more robust organisation for the purposes of managing high risk. Because you're not looking at the challenges that are being faced by your organisation through the lens of everybody having gone through the sausage machine and everybody essentially looking at things through the world of, you know, the usually white men of a certain age. So actually people are seeing things through very, very different perspectives and identifying where different risks might lay. And actually beyond that, think about what that does to your market. So Richard, at the very beginning, you were talking about, you know, potentially working with different artists and getting, how do you sell your art and getting into different markets. So if you've actually got people from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different faith backgrounds, that you're partnering and working with, they can, you know, and this isn't just for Richard, this is for all of us, they can potentially see routes into different markets. Well, actually, if you adapted that in this way, that might be really appealing to my community, the people that I know, the people that I understand. If you adapted it in this way, it may become appealing over there. So it isn't just about management of risk, it's also about identification of opportunity. So these different viewpoints, this experiential diversity that I talked about, these different ways of processing the world, help us to grow our businesses and they help us to manage risk. Am I making sense so far? Yes, no?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so let's have a think about, well, what do we do? So what can we do? Now, I'm a coach by profession, and I am, you know, I'm a trainer, and I do lots of work in the field of organisational development. So helping and supporting organisations to change and to look at themselves differently and to do things differently. And so I always start with looking in the mirror. So actually really seriously holding a mirror up to ourselves and to the organisations that we operate in, or the organisations that we operate with, or the organisation that we might have just started or founded or be looking to build. Let's hold a mirror up to ourselves. So starting with some really honest conversation. And you might be familiar with this, Nick, I know that you are, because I do bang on about it a bit, but here's a really useful tool that we can use to start to think about ourselves and our organisations and how we might be able to, and our teams, and how we might be able to build the diversity of our team. And if anybody's seen this before, then please feel free to jump in, to comment, to whatever. So I use Johari's window a lot. I use it in my coaching practice. I use it in my organisational development, organisational design practice. So in my consultancy. So Johari's window, the name, I'm often asked, the name comes because the two psychologists who came up with it, one of them was called Joseph and as his first name, and the other one was called Harrison as his last name. So they just took their two names and combined them and came up with Johari window. But essentially, what they talk about is that we all have a domain that is known to ourselves and is known to other people. So the things that we are all prepared to tell people about and share. And this is true for us as individuals, and I think it's also true for organisations. I use this as an organisational analytic as much as I use it as an individual analytic. So, you know, we all have things that we know about ourselves and that other people know about us. And we all have things that we know about our organisation and that other people know about our organisation. But then we have things that sit in that blind pane. So things that other people know about us, but that we may not necessarily know ourselves. And this, I think, is where a lot of the challenges around equality and diversity and building truly diverse organisations and teams comes from, because we may be behaving in a way that causes people from diverse backgrounds to think that they are not welcome, or not encouraged, or not supported, or not listened to. And actually, I would suggest that in most cases, my client organisation doesn't actually know what that is. They have not set out to create something deliberately. They have not set out to create an unwelcoming, undiverse organisation. But it's just that their practices and their way of doing business over time have developed in such a way that other people may not feel as comfortable with them. That is one of the challenges that we face. So what is it about our organisation that we don't know about it, or about ourselves and the way that we come across and the way we do business? What is it about us that other people know, but that we don't know ourselves? And how do we get to find out about it? That's the interesting question. How do we get to find out about it? And I'm going to come to that in the not too distant future. And then we have the things that we know ourselves, about ourselves or about our organisations, but that aren't known to others. Now, from a self perspective, that might be that we hold an ism, right? We're talking about equality and diversity, building diverse teams. So that might be that we have an ism, we have a worldview of people from a certain group, a certain background, a certain this, a certain that, somebody with a tattoo, whatever it might happen to be. So we hold that ism. And we haven't overtly told anyone. It isn't widely known to others. But the thing is, and from a personal perspective, you know, when I talk about Johari's window from a personal perspective in the world of coaching, I will say that if you're holding something, if you're holding knowledge or information that you are not choosing to share with your organisation, then eventually, you know, apart from, you know, if it's something very minor, but if it's something more major, eventually that will leak. And that will impact and manifest on how you behave within that organisation. And it will impact on your engagement, or on your performance, or on something that the organisation will see. But imagine that you, as the owner or the leader of the organisation, have a view. You have a view about a certain group, or certain groups, or certain conditions, or certain whatever it might happen to be. You know it's wrong, you inherently know that it is wrong, you know that it's potentially unlawful to hold that view, and so you choose to, you hide it, you keep it in, you don't share, you don't tell anybody. But actually the issue is that these things will leak. And they will leak in terms of who you favour, who you listen to, who has a voice and who doesn't have a voice. It will leak in terms of the policies that you approve, the papers that you approve, the ideas that you support, the budget allocations that you give. You know, it leaks, and that is the reality of the situation. Try as you might, it leaks. And then we have the bits that we don't know ourselves and that other people don't know, and that's where we can develop and investigate and grow and have those light bulb moments in a collaborative way, and that's wonderful. So Johari Window, I think, is a really useful tool to start to think about, you know, not only ourselves and you know, the views that we may hold, but also the organisations that we're operating in. Or if we've had some difficult experiences ourselves, trying to understand whether the person who behaved in the way that they did, or when we behaved in the way that we did, which pain did that operate from? Because sometimes, you know, I think that most people the vast majority of people are genuine and decent, and some are not, but the vast majority of people that I come across are genuine and decent. And if they are behaving in a way that is causing difficulty to others, it's because it sits in the blind spot. They don't know what their behaviour is doing or how their thought processes are manifesting to others. So what can we do? Oh. So this specifically talks about racism, but I think it's a really fantastic statement, and I think it's a really fantastic statement that we can potentially apply to, you know, to pretty much any diverse group. So this is from an academic over in America, so University of Virginia, and there's a movement about not just wanting to be an equal opportunities employer, or, you know, have a statement about being diverse. You know, there is actually a movement now to build organisations that are overtly anti-racist in this case. And you know, as you can see from the slide, you know, she talks about the anti-racist organisation will acknowledge systemic racism in the workplace, from individuals to C-suite, as well as the way wealth equality in society might impact the bottom line through the consumer base. So that is, and I think that that can be applied across a lot of different protective characteristic groups. You know, I think that if we start from a basis of there is inherent racism, sexism, whatever it might happen to be, I think that we don't go far wrong. But is that actually a problem? And I don't think it is. I don't think it's a problem, because I think that what this does inherently is allow us to do the thing that I think is the most important in building diverse teams and organisations. And Justina, if we can pop people into a couple of breakout rooms in just a moment. It's about starting a really honest conversation. So you know, I think that we need to acknowledge and recognise that that isms exist in all organisations, and different people in the organisation will have different isms, and there may be some isms that are culturally ingrained because of the way that the organisation has been developed, grown and built, and the views of the founders and the legacy and the culture. But I think that what we can all do is start to have a really honest conversation. So what I'm going to ask you to do, just for a few minutes, probably, you know, no more than 10 minutes, is just pop into a couple of breakout rooms and just start a conversation about your experiences, where you might have experienced, you know, any isms, seen them. I'm not asking you to confess all, but where you might have seen this in action, seen how organisations or people or individuals have behaved towards you, and maybe just start talking about, you know, how you think an organisation that you build and grow and develop, or an organisation that you work in, with or for, could do things differently. So we'll just take a few minutes, talk amongst yourselves, and then you can come and feed back, and we'll see what amazing ideas we came up with. Is that okay? Yeah.
Okay.
See you in a few minutes.
All ready to go in.
Yeah?
Okay.
Wonderful.
Hi. Oh, it's all going so great so far.
Good. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting to hear, and really thought-provoking. So it's good to get them thinking too.
So when I'll tell them this in a little while. When I worked in the police service, the thing that I was most frequently asked for was a manual.
Oh, okay.
A manual of, so if we're going to somebody's house and they're Sikh and somebody's just died. What do we need to do? What do we need to say? Do we take our shoes off? Do we leave our shoes on? Where's the holy book? Where can't we look? Where can't we walk? Where can't we this? So I was forever being asked to produce this, you know, huge tome. And my take on it was always, let's teach police officers to have the confidence to have a conversation with somebody from a different group and just say, really don't want to cause any offence, and it is, I appreciate this is a really difficult time for us. Can you tell us what you need us to do to be respectful to your needs at this time? But we didn't give people the confidence to have that. So it is, for me, it's all just about starting a conversation, because you and I could both be, well, we both are white women, aren't we? We're both white women, but our backgrounds, experiences, and everything that we bring to the party are completely different. Yeah, so it's, for me, it's just about individuality. Do you think any?
Right. It's those conversations, and I think a lot of people don't really know how to start that conversation. So once they start to practice and talk about these topics, then I think that's really great. And what I'm really excited is actually we've got Claire Wild in one of the teams here, and she's just been through a launch business challenge.
Okay.
So she's led a team to win on this challenge where they were working with Salford Foundation to solve how do they engage with their beneficiaries, and they've come up with some great solutions. So she's actually led that team to win, and now they've combined two teams, so the winners and runners up. So they're being really inclusive, and now they're going to work with the foundation. And they've just received some more funding too through another competition. So I think that's so great that she's here, and she's looking to really take on all the advice and learn, and hopefully she'll be supported through launch as a new business in October.
Wow, that's so fab. And she knew what it was, that my picture was the hacienda. So she's definitely good books.
Yeah, and I guess we've got another person here, Murat. He's been to nearly every single session. So it's really interesting to see the people that are really, really engaged, but then others just drop in and drop out. So that's so funny. So did you know Nicholas? Is he one of your colleagues or someone you've advised?
So Nick came on so he's a small business owner. He's based in he's actually based down south, but he came on one of my coaching courses last year. And he saw your link on, saw my comment on your link on LinkedIn, and so asked if he could jump in, and I sent him the link, so I assumed it was okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it was open to public, so no problem. Yeah. Great. It's such a mixed audience. We also have some students from, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but we're working with an organization in Oman where we're supporting students, entrepreneurial students there. And we've opened up the festival to 100 of those too. So they're dropping in and out and listening.
Okay. Who are you working with in Oman?
Oh my goodness, it's called .next program, and I've been kind of vaguely involved in that, but it's actually my colleague Naomi Timperley that is running that with Francine.
Oh right, yeah, I know Naomi.
Yeah, so it's been a really interesting progress, and I think she'll be delivering a boot camp to them over the next few weeks. Yeah, starting in a couple of weeks' time. I've just been so focused on the festival, and I've got another couple of programs running at the same time. So I'm just like, somebody else.
I've done quite a bit of work in Oman, hence the nosiness.
Oh, great! What type of work did you do?
So when we set this business up, we were still really feeling the effects of the crash. So it was sort of 2010, and so we were struggling to find work in the UK, and we went on a then UK Trade and Investment Overseas mission to the Gulf.
Great.
And basically we liked them and they liked us, so worked extensively in Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait and Oman. So yeah, I've done quite a lot of work out there with various organisations. been a few times. Love it.
Oh, fabulous. No, that sounds really, really great. I think we perhaps might be doing a little bit more work internationally, as I think we've got a lot of people are interested in the model that we deliver as the incubator. So
Yeah.
launch itself, we have some various discussions. That's mostly Francine that looks at kind of developing it further, and it is commercial work for us. So people like to kind of get that university brand and the program and the expertise. So we're having some conversations about India, a few institutions, I think, in India to look at maybe doing a similar program. But yeah, it's exciting to share what we do and take it, somewhere else. It's just there's only a very small team, so we're working with colleagues externally and internally as well.
Fantastic! How wonderful. Okay, I think should we pull them back out in another minute? Is that okay? You can, if you tell me what,
I can do
or I
that.
can manage it.
No problem. I just have there's a little button. I'm not sure whether you have you can see that, but when you look at the attendees list, there's a little button in black at the very top.
Oh yes.
The end breakout groups just there.
Can you give them a warning?
Okay, so I would just have to go in there. So let me just find out how to do that because I haven't.
It doesn't matter if you can't. It doesn't matter if you can't. We can literally pull them out in a moment. I think because we've only got 20 minutes left, and I want them to have some questions. So
that's it. Let me see if I can. Oh, I can just go in and I'll let them know. Okay, I'll do that.
thanks, Dina.
No worries. Hi, Rebecca. I just want to have a chat, so it's really hard to kind of cut them up.
Okay,
So I'm gonna.
okay.
I told them now we're coming back in, so they know.
Okay.
I'll end the breakout rooms.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Okay, coming in.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Okay. So what were the headlines? Justine had popped in and said that you were all chatting away. So has anybody got any sort of the headlines from their room that they wanted to share that they think would be useful learning for myself and for the other guys?
I think basically that sexism can come from both ways, because I was dealing with a recent application and all the people in the office were women. So this is what you tend to get in the arts. So I think there was possibly some sexism against me. I don't know for sure, but I mean, I didn't get shortlisted. And then when they responded to me to tell me that I wasn't getting shortlisted, they just sent me out a standard email and they didn't even use my name. And then when I asked for some feedback, they actually they never got back to me about it, even though they promised to give some brief feedback. So I think they were a terrible organisation, to be honest with you.
You know, and it's sometimes really interesting, because whether there's an ism going on or not, I think sometimes the way that organisations respond to you in those circumstances often tell you more about whether you really wanted to work there or not than anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably a
Anyone
lucky
else?
break, Richard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share any of the highlights or insights from your conversations? Nick, Claire, Melida?
I think one of the things is this whole feeling about it's very easy to not feel welcome in a team, and it's very easy for the people who all feel comfortable to not notice other people who are uncomfortable. Yes,
yeah. So that emotional intelligence piece. So you know, so switching on your emotional intelligence and noticing what's actually going on for your people. Yeah, definitely. And potentially, you know, as a leader or a manager, having the confidence to call it out when you don't see it as well.
Definitely. Yeah, because I feel a lot of times people would collaborate an awful lot more and contribute so much more to the team, but because they're made to feel uncomfortable, that it's a sort of vicious cycle of disengaging and not wishing to take that. It shouldn't be a risk. They should feel psychologically safe.
Yeah.
They should feel welcome. Yeah.
They should. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying to Richard, if you don't work in an organisation where you can be your authentic self, then I don't think the organisation's really ever going to gain from you.
No, that's exactly right, Claire. I agree with that totally.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, I think what we do is, I think sometimes what you see in organisations is, you know, they start very well and they genuinely mean to allow people to be their authentic self, but then over time you get to the point where you almost know that to go any further, get that promotion, do that other thing, you've somehow got to conform and behave differently. And it's not overt, it's not stated, but it's what ends up happening. And as I was doing some research for this, you know, I saw a statement that absolutely broke my heart, and it was from somebody who was black, who had gone to university in America, and he said his biggest experience of having gone to university was that it taught him to be white and therefore acceptable for the world of work. So I mean, what that is, you know, that was so powerful to me. It really was powerful to me. Okay, anything else that anyone else wants to just add in? Marat or Melida, anything you want to add in before I just move on and share a few more slides and then come to questions and answers? No? You okay? Right. Okay, so let's, and these are just based on my ideas and my experience, and I am not saying that there aren't other incredible things that you can do, will do, have done, you know, but this is just my take on it. I was saying to Justina when you were in the breakout group, I'm conscious of time as well, but I was saying to Justina, when I worked for the police service, the thing that in the equality and diversity role, the thing I was asked for the most frequently by police officers of all sorts of different levels, from from PCs right the way through to senior managers, was a manual. We want a manual. We want to know if we're going to the house of somebody who's sick, who has been burgled, or we're going to make an arrest or do something. What do we do? How are we respectful? Give us the list, give us the tick list of how we behave in a Sikh household, how do we behave in a Muslim household, how do we behave in a Christian household, how do we behave with people who are from this background or that background? What do we do? How do we say things? How do we engage? And I mean, you can imagine, can't you? Because obviously everybody who's a Sikh wants exactly the same thing. Everybody who's Muslim wants exactly the same thing. I don't think so. And so what I used to say is, what you don't need a manual. You need to have the confidence to have a conversation with someone. And that's what we lack so often. And I think that one of the things that has caused this over the years is a lot of the, I think, very skewed reporting in the media about oh well, human rights and political correctness. If you genuinely were having a conversation with somebody and saying, I want to be as respectful to you as I possibly can be in these situations, please can you tell me what you need from me, then who's going to complain about that? I just genuinely think that what we don't always do is empower people to have a conversation. And I think that in a lot of organisations, we talk a lot about, oh, well, we're an equal opportunities employer and we're this and we're that and the other. And that's okay. I'm not suggesting that that's wrong. But what I think that we need to do is to make a bold statement. And saying we're an equal opportunities employer is probably fine, but is it a bold statement? Claire, your point, actually saying the type of business that we are is one where we want people who join us to be their authentic self, is a much stronger way of saying that, rather than some of the trite or too frequently used and not actually followed up phrases that you see. So make a statement, make a bold statement about who you are and what you want to be, and as an organisation, and that idea of authenticity is just lovely. And then I think there's something about knowing your values, and I don't mean the values that we all think we should be talking about, inclusivity and fairness. Yeah, they're amazing. They're absolutely fabulous. But if they are not the values that your organisation lives and breathes, then don't say it. And I also think the other thing about values is there's nothing wrong with making a bold statement about your values either. If your values are about making money, being creative, being entrepreneurial, and enabling authenticity, then why not say it? Our values should be who we are as an organisation, and if we want creative, dynamic people to come and work for us who are going to be, in and of themselves, but also are going to be business focused and business driven, why not say that? Why not say that's who we are? I think a lot of the stuff around values came about after 2008 and the global crash, and people felt that it was wrong inherently somehow to talk about the fact that businesses are here to make some money, but that's what we're here to do. So, I'm not saying, be a grabbing capitalist organisation that'll tread on anybody to get to the top. But, because that might encourage some people to come and work for you, but it might also not encourage a lot of people to come and work for you. But talk about who you genuinely and authentically are, and state that boldly. And then something that will probably make Justina smile, because this is something that I know that Salford University do incredibly well, and Robert Ritchie, who's the head of OD, does an amazing job around this, but I think it's absolutely critical. You know, have an organisational story that you're going to tell people, but also with your diverse communities, with your diverse clients, with your diverse teams, allow them to tell their authentic story about what's happening for them. So if they are feeling marginalised, if they feel that some of the professional working practices of the organisation disadvantage them in some way, and that it's in that blind pain, allow them to tell their story, allow people to talk to the organisation and create a culture of genuine feedback, learning and listening. You know, I talk to people about this all the time with my OD hat on, you know, be a learning organisation. And this is another one of those phrases that is thrown about very glibly. Oh yes, we're a learning organisation, we're not a blaming organisation. But when you've got somebody who is from a, you know, who has a different experience, a different background, some sort of diverse, you know, diverse experience that they're bringing to the party, you know, learn from them. Truly learn from them, and you know, and really be a learning organisation. So you know, I absolutely adore this. This is if you might be familiar with it, it's Chris Agiris's double loop learning. You know, so he taught, you know, when somebody tells us the story, when the result is that somebody is not feeling like they are included and part of the team, you know, don't just listen to them and change something there and then and have a word or speak to the other members of the team or tell them that they're wrong. Go back to actually, how have we created this organisation? What are the underpinning assumptions that we have? What are the underpinning policies, procedures, principles and culture that we have? And is there something inherent within that that is leading to this end result? So really openly, frankly, choose to be a learning organisation. And you know, and then there are things that you can do, and I think one of the most powerful things that we can do at this moment in time is the use of things like reverse mentoring. So for those of you who are familiar with mentoring, you know, reverse mentoring is a really incredible idea. So we see it quite often around IT. So where we see young people, there's lots of projects at the moment where young people might be going into, well, not during COVID, but you know, young people going into old people's homes and teaching them how to use iPads and Skype and things like that so that they can communicate with their families. So reverse mentoring, under normal circumstances, the mentor is the more senior, the more experienced person who supports, develops, guides and gives wisdom to somebody who is more junior. Reverse mentoring is where somebody perhaps from a diverse background, somebody who is neurodiverse or somebody who is from a protected characteristic group or somebody who's had a very different experience to others in the organisation, reverse mentor. So they may well be more junior, but they're supporting somebody else to see the world through their lens. I'm a white woman of a certain age. I don't know. I can be empathetic, I can be understanding, I can have worked with people, but I don't know what it's like to be black or gay or, you know, transgender or from any other different background. I don't know how to be anybody other than me. So I think that for me to try to pretend that I can be somebody else or that I understand it truly from their perspective is wrong and is somewhat arrogant. So actually pairing people up to help others in the organisation hear their story from their perspective through this notion of reverse mentoring, I think is really rather marvellous, and it's one of the most powerful things that I'm seeing my client organisations use at this moment in time about building diverse teams within their organisations. So we have, it's 26 minutes past, so just a few minutes to go. Has anybody got any questions, challenges, you know, anything that they want to layer in, any experiences that they want to share with the group? Anything that I've said that has, you know, either had resonance or has been, you know, from your perspective completely wrong or inappropriate, please do just throw that in the mix. Go on.
Sorry, excuse me. I tried to speak. My microphone wasn't on. I was just going to say, yeah, I was just going to say, have you got any jobs for the likes of me in your organisation?
I wish I did have, Richard, but I think like a lot of organisations at the moment post COVID, we're still very much in recovery mode. But
yeah, sure. Like, can you have some details of your organisation? I'd like to check you out. Have you got a website and that?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. So I'll get Justina to send it out with the well, it's on the first slide anyway, so our logo and everything's on the first.
All right, did I miss that? Sorry, I was just tinkling about with something else, like while I was listening a lot. Thanks for the talk. It's been really interesting, actually. Yeah.
Oh, good. Anybody else? Anything anyone wants to add in? No, Claire, I understand. I was talking to Justina while you were in the breakout room, and I understand congratulations are in order. Well done.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, well, that's kind of it from me. I'm on my hobby horse. I could probably have talked for about 3 days, but hey ho, I won't. I'll stop at this point. So thank you all very much for your time and attention. I hope it was okay, and it was really lovely of you to come and listen to my ramblings. So yeah, good stuff.